You're listening to The Gabby Gordon Show. New to the community? Head to GabbyGordonShow.com today. Sign up for the mailing list for exclusive Q&As, conversations, and special surprises. Send in sports-related voice messages, including all questions, through our website to be featured in a future episode. Once again, that's GabbyGordonShow.com. GabbyGordon show.com. Let's kick off today's episode.
What is going on, sports fans, and welcome to the Gabby Gordon Show. My name is Gabby Gordon, welcoming you in on this beautiful Wednesday, January 17th, 2024, inching closer and closer to the NFL playoffs divisional round day by day. We are almost there. Welcome to the show. Hope you're all having a great day, wherever you may be listening from. Look, it's been bad weather out there. For us East Coasters, I'm currently stationed in Connecticut doing my thing, and we got some snow yesterday. There were multiple instances where I could have fallen flat on my face and ate crap, all right? Can't curse on the show, but you know what I want to say. A lot of instances. So I'm here in the studio today, and still icy, but luckily, you know, the public safety people, they do a great job at shoveling, so round of applause to them for making it a safe voyage to the studio, getting what I need to do done today, and we're spending a great day. But I've heard it's supposed to snow again on Friday, potentially. I'm no weather girl, and I'll never claim to be, but I heard it's supposed to snow again, and we had freezing rain yesterday on top of the snow, so the icy conditions, it was like a nightmare, but I don't know how much more I can deal with, because I've realized as I get older and older and older, snow is no longer fun. You know, when you're a kid, you want it to snow. You are praying for the moment it snows because you got no school. It's a snow day. You go out, you play. Playing football in the snow, one of the best memories of my life. Getting absolutely bodied by a grown man, my father in the snow, with my mother as quarterback. That's a dream. That's a dream. It really is. But now as I've grown into the adult I am becoming, it's like now you realize it ain't as fun. You got driving to worry about. You've got walking to places you need to be at. And it's just, who's playing in the snow anymore? Actually, I did see some people sledding, some grown people sledding down a tiny hill yesterday, walking back to where I'm staying. So that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, guys, I don't know, the voyages in the snow, it's just not fun anymore like it used to be. It really isn't. But you know what? We call this year, and I have made this year in my mind, the hashtag glass half full year. And I'm sticking by that throughout all of 2024, hopefully through the rest of my life. That's the motto I try and stick with, is glass is half full. And if somebody's glass is empty, be the person to fill their glass. You know, it's a symbolic way of spreading kindness in a world that desperately needs more kindness, for sure. But we're a sports show. So how do we spread kindness? By doing this every single day the way we do it. My entire being is to bring you joy and happiness while we talk about the current happenings in the sports world. That is my goal through this entire Gabby Gordon show. And I hope that as you listen, you can have some of that positivity rub off on you. And if not, I'll get you there one day. But it's still a journey for me too. Don't be fooled. Being positive is a journey. Always has been. Especially when your NFL team sucks. Can't speak for myself because the Packers are still rolling through, but a lot of teams can speak for that. One of those teams, the Cleveland Browns, they've made some coaching moves following their wild card loss in Houston against C.J. Stroud in the Stroud House. As they head into the offseason, we've had some changes to the offensive staff, which we're going to get into. All of that and more on The Gabby Gordon Show, starting right now. Welcome to The Gabby Gordon Show. My name is Gabby Gordon. Yes, as I just mentioned, the Cleveland Browns made a stunning postseason run. Before I even get in to how the outcome was, before I even get into the changes to the offensive staff made by head coach Kevin Stefanski thus far, the run that the Cleveland Browns were able to put together was phenomenal. Truly phenomenal. And Joe mother-freaking Flacco, sitting on his couch just a few months ago, was able to step in to the starting QB role. Granted, he's a vet in the league. He's been around. He's been around for quite a bit. But to be able to learn a playbook, to learn an offensive scheme, to learn a team that quickly under a head coach you've never worked with before in Kevin Stefanski, and ultimately make it to the wild card round is an incredibly, incredibly impressive feat for Joe Flacco. They made a stunning postseason run. They had a trove of injuries as well. We saw Joe Flacco relying a lot on tight end David Njoku, who is a freak of nature athletically, but still, trove of injuries. And when David Njoku wasn't open, Joe Flacco made things happen in a different light. Still, they headed into the postseason. Despite the adversity, they did lose in Houston against C.J. Stroud in the wild card loss. Not a close game. Completely blown out by a rookie quarterback. Had to hurt for a guy like Joe Flacco, who's been through it, been around the league, had a great run with the Ravens, and now had a great run with the Browns. Division rivals. But they are still heading into the offseason now. Their run is over, and head coach Kevin Stefanski has made some changes to his offensive staff. NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport reported early today that the Browns fired running backs coach Stump Mitchell and tight ends coach T.C. McCarthy will not be retained, per a source informed of the situation. Rappaport also added that OC Alex Van Pelt remains under contract with no other final decision made as the club goes through their offensive staff role evaluation process. It's been a couple days since the loss now. Now is time where teams who haven't made it any further are looking into their internal what went wrong type of thing. We heard it yesterday with Nick Sirianni. Look, again, as much as I don't like the guy, what he said was respectable in the sense that he took accountability. He took total accountability. He said he didn't do a good enough job. But what the point I'm making is after a certain time period of processing the loss, processing the season as a whole for coaches, you really get back to business. And you're focusing on next season at this point. For the Cleveland Browns, they're still in a position of talent where they need to keep going and doing the best that they can possibly do to put together a winning team. So that's what Kevin Stefanski is doing. A favorite to win head coach of the year for sure. The things he did with that team, with the, again, adversity, obstacles that he faced, bringing in Joe Flacco. It was like huge year for Kevin Stefanski. Even though he didn't get the full job done, he still got a big part of it done and kind of restored a little bit of respect in Cleveland around the league, especially to those fans as well who have been wishing for some more success as they kind of just fall when it matters most. But it's now the time for a lot of these teams who have fallen in the wild card round where it's like now you have to look internally. What worked, what didn't, what can we change so that this doesn't happen again coming into next season? And that's what the Browns are doing right now. Mitchell's a former 9-year pro back with the Arizona Cardinals. He's been a long-time NFL running backs coach, including some stints with the Seahawks from 1999 to 2007. Washington, where he was there for a year, 2008 to 2009. The Cardinals, he was there from 2013 to 2016. And the Jets, he had a year there, 2017 to 2018. And then, of course, joined the Browns in 2019. And when Kevin Stefanski took over the team in 2020, he kept Mitchell. Star running back Nick Chubb had a phenomenal year, earned 4 1,000-yard seasons with Mitchell as his running backs coach. Obviously, we know, suffered a very, very, very bad leg injury there in Week 2 of the 2023 season, and we have not seen him on the field since. His comeback will be something that we all look out for, potential comeback player of the year, if he could put it together. McCarthy joined the Browns with Stefanski in 2020 as an offensive assistant, and then he was elevated to tight ends coach in 2022. And, hey, he's done a pretty decent job with David Njoku, who had a career year this season. He had 81 catches, 882 yards, 6 touchdowns, earned a Pro Bowl nod. My favorite moments of watching David Njoku is when, Cleveland's not a warm place, especially during the NFL season, and this man is just warming up with his shirt off. Like, it doesn't matter. And he can do whatever he wants with his shirt off because his physique is that of a Greek god, basically. David Njoku is a different type of NFL tight end. Truly a different type of player, and it showed this year. And it showed with the Pro Bowl nod, 6 touchdowns. He's obviously one of the best in the tight end position there is right now. And he really, really, really connected with Joe Flacco when it needed to happen. But I kind of like what Kevin Stefanski's doing here, because you could say, yeah, sure, it worked. We made it to the postseason, but you didn't really make it past anything at all. You made it there, your first-round exit. So in Kevin Stefanski's mind, and especially his mind being one of the greatest coaches in the league, and if not the best, he's a Coach of the Year favorite, he's shaking things up headed into 2024. And I really like that, because even though a lot of injuries really derailed their depth chart there in Cleveland, Stefanski's crew could only make it so far. And when you look internally at an organization, especially as the head coach of that organization, and you take accountability for being first-round exits and really not putting up much of a fight against a very young team in the Houston Texans and a first-time NFL head coach under a first-time NFL QB, it's like now you have to look internally, and now you have to figure out what went wrong. And I think Stefanski's changing things up. I don't think he likes what he sees, and I think he's the type of guy that just demands greatness and will not stop until he gets to that point. And I love that. I really love that, and I wish more teams would have the guts to do that. And a lot of teams, unfortunately, don't have the guts to do that, and it really aids to their failures. So that's just some news on the Cleveland Browns. I'm sure we will hear more on some replacements and kind of what they do going forward, because there are a lot of questions within Cleveland. What's the future with Joe Flacco, if there is any future at all? What do you do in situations with those injuries? Getting Nick Chubb back is going to be huge for the Browns. So how do you kind of work around an offense that lacked one of the best running backs in the league? Now you're going to be getting him back for the season. How does that change the offensive scheme of things? I think there's a lot of questions in Cleveland, but they are far from unable to get it done. With a head coach that they have in Kevin Stefanski, they can absolutely get the job done coming into 2024. I think if you are a Browns fan, you have to contain the excitement and hold on to it, because there's no need to throw it out the window just because you were first-round exits. Look, the injuries derailed you. Nick Chubb in that game, probably a very different matchup, probably a very different situation in the season as a whole. To be able to bounce back from losing your best player in week 2 and still make it to where you got to make it, pretty spectacular. And a lot of that falls on Kevin Stefanski. So we'll have to keep an eye and see what he continues to do with his staff, what those decisions are, and hey, maybe he will be the Coach of the Year, certainly the favorite. We'll have to see how that runs out too. Heading over to a different team in the same division, actually Joe Flacco's former team, the Baltimore Ravens. Look, they are coming off of a bye week. Maybe that means some rust, or maybe that means that all of their starters are completely juiced up and ready to give C.J. Stroud a rude welcome. They gave him a rude welcome to his NFL career in week 1, blasting him, making his first start as quarterback one to forget. They routed the Houston Texans 25-9 at M&T Bank Stadium, but since then, all C.J. Stroud has done is scorch opposing defenses, and he's well on his way to an Offensive Rookie of the Year award. Led the Texans to a dominant Super Wildcard weekend over the Cleveland Browns last weekend. Wasn't even close. Put on an absolute show. His line was near perfect. Ravens defenders know that they are going to face a much different C.J. Stroud than the one that they just flipped upside down in week 1. They will be hosting Houston on Saturday, divisional round. What does it look like for potential Super Bowl favorites heading into this one?
As of facing a team that you played, albeit it was week 1, but a team that you've seen before?
You would think, but not really. I feel like they're a whole different team. CJ is a whole different QB. I feel like we woke him up, he matured, and he's been balling ever since. I got a lot of respect for him and everything, but I feel like everyone on that team is a little different. In the playoffs, obviously people play harder, so we got to come with a different energy as well.
Hey, look, I love that mentality. I really do. I think an incredible and really important mind to be in sports is you can never get complacent. My coaches used to tell me this all the time when I would play softball, still playing, but my previous coaches would always tell me, you cannot get complacent. Doesn't matter what the opposing team looks like, doesn't matter what you've done to them in the past, you cannot get cocky and you cannot ever feel comfortable. And I think that is the entire theme that the Ravens have been working with throughout their bye week. And that is huge because we see a lot of teams sometimes come in there with expectations from the beginnings of the season. And then those expectations go out the door because it's two completely different teams and two completely different matchups. And players often find a way to find themselves throughout the weeks of the NFL. C.J. Stroud certainly has found himself, without a doubt about it. He is the only player with 1,000-plus passing yards, 0 interceptions on deep passes this season per Next Gen Stats, and second in completion percentage, pass yards, pass touchdown interception, and passer rating on deep passes. So, very different player from what the Ravens faced back in Week 1. Very different player, and I think that is the entire theme of what the Ravens have been working with this entire week, that they have been off, able to regroup. Lamar Jackson said in his interview that he was able to regroup. He's fired up. He's feeling antsy. I think the Ravens are coming in with a great mindset, and it's going to be a challenge for Stroud. But there's also been a ton of other challenges for Stroud this season that he has overcome. And I said this when I made my prediction for the Browns and Texans ultimately picking the C.J. Stroud-led Texans. And I said a lot of guys shrink when there's pressure on them, especially the rookies, because they've never dealt with it. And they don't know how to deal with it because you can't be taught how to deal with pressure. It's just something you kind of adapt to. And I said, I don't think that Stroud shrinks at all. I think, in fact, rather he expands to the moment and rises to the occasion like he did against the Browns, like he did to get them to the point they were at. And now heading into the divisional round, facing the team that obviously is coming in as the favorite, clinching the AFC, getting that bye, talking about Super Bowl predictions for the Baltimore Ravens for quite a while now. It's like both of these teams, I think it's going to be a dogfight. And I want to give some love to the Ravens because I really love what they've done this year. And Roquan Smith really, really, really said it. He said, quote, I think they're definitely improved, but so are we when you look at it, end quote. And I think that you really can't say it any better than that. The Ravens offense has clicked since day one. They prepared. Business is going to be handled. Now, I'm not betting one way or another. You won't hear my picks until Friday's show. We still got 2 days until we do the Lock It In segment for the divisional round. But Baltimore enters Saturday's tilt with the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. Last week, Stroud and the Texans knocked off the number 1 defense in yards allowed in Cleveland. So, look, I mean, I love this matchup. Couldn't love it more, to be honest. I absolutely love that it is Ravens-Texans rather than Ravens-Browns, just because there's going to be so much respect on that field because Lamar has done incredible things this year. Stroud is proving to be an incredible force in the league at his respective position. I'm just hoping for a dogfight. No more blowouts. We got enough of those in the wildcard round. But nonetheless, an incredibly exciting matchup. And hey, I love it even more that the Harbaugh brothers are now being in the media in the spotlight more. Jim just won a national championship. Now John is looking to win a Super Bowl, right? And so a lot of that is also just bigger than football, the family aspect of it all, especially when you saw John Harbaugh giving a nice embrace and hug on the sidelines of the national championship in Houston. It's like sometimes it's bigger than football, and so I think this matchup is a feel-good matchup. It really is. I can't look at either team and be like, oh, I don't want the Ravens to win. Oh, I don't want the Texans to win. It's a feel-good matchup. Both of these quarterbacks highly, highly, highly improved since week 1. Obviously, C.J. Stroud transformed since week 1, but don't discount Lamar Jackson because he's an absolute stud. And then both of these coaches again. John Harbaugh, incredible things he's been doing, going for a Super Bowl. DeMeco Ryans, his first year as a Texans head coach, working with a young team to be able to do what he has been doing. He's also in the running for Coach of the Year. It's like you cannot disrespect either of these teams unless you are a Texans fan or a Ravens fan. Then you're going to hate the other side because, of course, you want your team to make it in to the AFC Championship. But it has been an incredible journey to watch both of these teams. Again, you won't hear my pick until Friday's show on Lock It In, so stay tuned for that. But, hey, I'm loving this matchup. I really am loving this matchup. Another matchup that I absolutely love coming in to this weekend is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers postseason revenge tour hitting Motown for this divisional round. Todd Bowles, head coach of the Tampa Bay Bucs, looks so happy. Baker Mayfield looks so thrilled to be doing what he is doing. I've never seen Baker happier on a football field than with Tampa Bay. And you could say what you want about Baker, about his personality, about things he's done in the past. He has earned this moment. The Buccaneers have earned this moment. But in the same light, the Lions have earned this moment as well. And it has been incredible to watch both of these teams battle it out for this very moment. This has got to be one of my favorite matchups of the entire playoffs. Tampa Bay hitting Motown. Ford Field's going to be rocking once again. And the Lions are coming off of insane confidence, but so are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it's been an incredible journey to watch both of these teams do what they do. And it's going to be a revenge game for the Bucs. In Week 6, Detroit blew out the Bucs 20-6 in Tampa. That's a game where nothing went right for Todd Bowles and the rest of the club, and those 6 points were the season low for Tampa. Baker Mayfield was held to a season low, 56.8 passer rating in that game, and Jared Goff, quarterback for the Lions, threw for a season high, 353 yards with 2 passing touchdowns. And, of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown earned 12 catches, 124 yards, and a touchdown. So completely opposite performances in Week 6. The Bucs, the worst matchup of their season. The Lions, arguably one of the best. And now they're facing off again. Both of these teams have changed quite a bit since Week 6. That is the story of the playoffs, is that a lot of these teams have turned things around in unlikely of situations, and the Lions and Bucs no exception. These two teams are talented, very talented. And since December, Todd Bowles has led his club to turn the corner. They've won 6 of their past 7 games, including Monday with the blowout over the Eagles, which has to feel good if you are the Bucs, because even though the Eagles were the Eagles and imploded, like we spoke about yesterday, in the rest of their regular season for the past month or so, they have done nothing but fall apart and unravel at the seams. It's like, hey, you don't disrespect the Bucs just because the Eagles weren't playing at their best. The Eagles are a very talented team. Jalen Hurts is still light years better than Baker Mayfield when he is playing at his very best. But it doesn't really matter at that point, because did he play at his very best? No, he didn't. Baker Mayfield did. So it's like the Eagles now, no one's going to be talking about them for the right reasons for quite a long time until they can figure it out. Everybody's talking about Baker Mayfield and the Bucs for the right reasons coming into this game, and what Mayfield has been able to lead his team to do. I think the communication has been great. Mike Evans is mostly a touchdown machine. Some drops against the Eagles, a little uncharacteristic, but hey, Travis Kelce dropped a ton of passes in Arrowhead last weekend as well. You overlook it because you got the win. And I'm sure Mike Evans is coming out with a vengeance, a true vengeance, heading into Ford Field in Detroit. Baker Mayfield and him, I feel like they're just going to light it up. But at the same time, I feel like Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, that entire roster is going to light it up as well. So this is another matchup where I cannot look at either team and say, yeah, this one's going to win. Yeah, this one's going to lose. And that is the beautiful thing about the divisional round that is upon us. This is going to be a different matchup for Tampa, though, because, sure, they are coming off of a confidence booster type of win in the Philadelphia Eagles, who were once 10-1. We're talking about potential Super Bowl favorites at that point in time when they were 11 weeks into the regular season, and now it's like they're facing a much different team and a much different opponent in Detroit. The Eagles team was in chaos, total chaos, coming into the wild card round. Not the Eagles team that we knew when they were 10-1, just complete and utter chaos and unraveling at the seams for that franchise, and we still don't know why, truly. They're facing a different team in the Lions, who are not in total chaos, actually incredibly put together under head coach Dan Campbell and what they've managed to do. So it is a very, very different opponent in Tampa and something that they are going to have to adapt to throughout this week. In the same light, Detroit cannot take their foot off the gas for anything. That was a close victory, 1-point victory against the LA Rams and against former Detroit Lions quarterback Matt Stafford. So that has to get their juices going. Both of these teams have to adapt in their own way, but ultimately I think this is going to be a great matchup. You got two quarterbacks who haven't had the most success in this league thus far. You got Baker Mayfield, who's been through it with different teams, and on the same sense, Jared Goff as well, who got traded to Detroit. Sayonara from LA basically was how it went in that blockbuster trade. And it's like you got two quarterbacks with very similar visions here. Of course, the vision is go all the way and win a damn Super Bowl, be able to hoist up that Lombardi trophy and do it for your city. But both of these quarterbacks, I think, are very similar in what they've gone through so far in the NFL and in their respective careers. And now it's like they're coming together. I think there's a lot of respect that's going to be at Ford Field for both of these teams this weekend. Both of these teams. I want to move on here to a team that obviously isn't in the playoffs. Look, we've been talking a ton about the postseason teams here, and rightfully so, because there's just so many storylines headed into the divisional round and all the way, and we're going to be talking about football pretty much until the Super Bowl, honestly. I mean, it's taking precedent, and for a reason. But I really wanted to touch upon the Bears. There's been a lot of mock drafts released thus far that are begging the question, what will the Bears do with the number 1 pick in the draft? Will they ride with Justin Fields, or is it going to look like Caleb Williams front and center for Chicago? And I was reading through a lot of the news this morning, especially because there's been some articles posted throughout yesterday, and everybody is doing these mock drafts, and I've done a couple of them in the past, not for this season, but a couple of them in the past, and honestly, you can never trust any single mock draft because it never gets 100% right. You get about maybe the first 3 picks, first 4 or 5, and then after that, it's like out the window, if you even get that many. And there's been some speculation about what the Bears are going to do with their first pick. And so I'm reading through the news about Justin Fields. I come across an article, NBC Sports Chicago, in which Dane Brugler says that NFL teams believe that the Bears will trade Justin Fields. And in this article, he reveals what the NFL team's thoughts are, what the other outsiders are looking at, outsiders but still within, and what the Bears will do in the latest mock draft. And in this mock draft, he reveals that the NFL teams believe the Bears will trade Justin Fields. So some crazy speculation going on here. Brugler wrote, quote, "I don't know what Ryan Poles will do, but I can tell you what other NFL teams believe he will do. Trade Justin Fields and draft a quarterback at number 1. This is as much a financial decision as it is a football decision." And so with that, in the mock draft, Brugler selected USC's Caleb Williams for the Bears with the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Now, for what it's worth, Brugler also drafted Alabama edge Dallas Turner for the Bears with the number 9 pick in the draft. But this entire storyline, and it's not just here with Brugler and his mock draft, I've seen a lot of them that believe, and a lot of people that believe, that Justin Fields is not going to be a Chicago Bear much longer. And it appears to be predominant thinking around the league that they will trade him and draft Caleb Williams. Not to discredit anything, but from Brugler's reporting of asking other teams, it's possible other teams are trying to control this narrative by kind of pushing it out there and pushing the Bears to trade Fields. And if the Bears kind of hear the other teams are suspecting it's happening, maybe it will push them to actually do it. I also heard on the Rich Eisen show recently that NFL Network draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah shared the same thoughts. He said, quote, "I just think he's a rare talent." He's obviously speaking about Caleb Williams there, and I can't see the Chicago Bears bypassing that. No better man to ask than Jay Cutler, who was the last Chicago great quarterback, adding his name to the list of discussions, who doesn't necessarily believe that Ryan Poles is going to make the move that the rest of these analysts believe. Now, Cutler did say he doesn't know what GM Ryan Poles will wind up doing, and honestly, Poles himself may not have a clue yet, but he would opt to trade the top pick and add more pieces around Justin Fields to continue to build this young team.
If you were general manager Ryan Poles, what would you do?
How much time we have?
4 months or
This is about as complex as they get. They got the first pick. They've got the 9th pick. You've got Caleb Williams. You've got Drake May, highly up there at 1-2, 1 through 5. And then you got Justin Fields going to his 3rd year. He's 10-27, 40 touchdowns, 30 picks. His fourth quarter stats are pretty bad. And the team's not that good. I don't know what they're going to do. What I think they should do is trade down, get some more guys on that team to help out Justin, and see what happens. Because let's plug in Caleb Williams on that team.
Yeah.
What happens?
If he's out there in that game with that game plan as many times as Justin had. Because I tried. I looked, because I'm on Justin Fields' side here. Because I'm afraid to take that chance with a guy in the top 10. We've seen that since we've been in the league, drafting top 10 quarterbacks is a crapshoot. You could get a Jay Cutler where your guy gives you a chance to win, or you could get a guy who flames out in a year or two. I think when it comes to Fields, you watch that game, you try to put the sacks on him. It's hard to do it. Like, where's he going with that football in those situations?
You know, the offensive game plans have been pretty bad. He's on his 2nd coordinator already. Will they have a 3rd one next year? Who knows what's going to happen there? But then I think if you do trade, you've got to look in who you're going to trade to. You know, there's Washington, New England, Atlanta, Vikings, Denver. You know, there's a lot of teams out there that want quarterbacks. So I think if they do get out of there, they need to be careful who they do trade to. But I think if you blow it up and you start all over again with the number 1 pick, you might be sitting in a worse position than you are right now.
See, I love this take from Jay Cutler, and I think he's got incredible insights also just from being a Bear himself and giving them a chance to win, like was mentioned in the video. There is no doubt that Caleb Williams is a top talent, and he could very well be a generational quarterback, but we do not know that yet, and it could be a crapshoot. The Bears are also not in a position where just a quarterback fixes everything. Jay Cutler said it himself, the team's not very good. And it's not just the quarterback position that's going to turn things around. The Bears are way more than a quarterback away from being a contender in the league. Yeah, they've got a defense that's on the rise, but there are still holes that need to be addressed on both sides of the ball. And if you trade that first overall pick to a team that desperately needs a quarterback more than you do, because we're not sitting here saying Justin Fields is a terrible player. He's got a ton of work to do. He's got a long way to go, let's just put it simply. But they are not just a quarterback away if they find their guy from putting all the pieces together. I think the first overall pick being traded to a team that truly needs the quarterback to become something or to even start a foundation would give them the assets from that trade to help Justin Fields and fix the holes that need to be addressed on both sides of the ball. And I couldn't agree more with what Jay Cutler said. Then again, if you were Poles and Caleb Williams becomes another Patrick Mahomes that you just missed out on and sets the franchise back for another decade, you're probably going to lose your job. Let's never forget that the Bears could have had Patrick Mahomes right now under center, and we would have been looking at a completely different league with the Bears dominating, most likely. Patrick Mahomes, obviously a generational talent in himself, but what if Caleb Williams becomes that for another team? A lot of teams out there in need of quarterbacks. And Ryan Poles has the decision now to take a chance on a guy that could be a win or a complete and utter bust, or sticking it through, trading the pick down. He still has the 9th pick to do something in the first round, but get your assets set around Justin Fields, who's not surrounded by a good team. And with Williams and Drake May both declaring for this draft, I think Chicago can get a ginormous haul for this number 1 pick. This is a huge pick this year. This means a ton to a lot of teams. And if they can get enough, which I think they absolutely can get, a huge amount of talent, they can continue to build this team into what they want it to be, that being a contender, if they can trade this number 1 pick. Of course, there's always the chance that they miss out on a phenomenal quarterback, but that's the risk you take in this league. And look, you don't need a generational quarterback to win games. Look, I'm not going to use Nick Foles as the example and saying that he is a bad quarterback, obviously winning a Super Bowl, but he was not the be-all and end-all. He is no Patrick Mahomes. He is no Josh Allen. He is no Lamar Jackson. But the team that surrounded Nick Foles and the work that Nick Foles was able to do with this team, that made them contenders. That brought them all the way to a ring. So it's not a be-all and end-all at the quarterback position. What you really need is a well-rounded team, and the Bears don't have that. And I think the only way that they can get that is to trade the pick, get a huge haul of talented guys, and continue to build the team into something that can contend one year. And then, of course, Jay Cutler ending with it, you may be in a worse position you are now if you blow this entire thing up, start with the number 1 pick, bring a new guy into a new system with a team that is far from talented in what it needs to be. You've got talented spotlights, but you don't have the light with your team. There's little glimpses. There's little flickers of what the Bears could be if Ryan Poles can do this well. No pressure for Ryan Poles, although it's an immense amount of pressure. And this is going to make or break the future of this franchise for sure. If it's me, I'm trading that number 1 pick, bringing in a huge haul of guys, and drafting that number 9th pick with something that can help me at my quarterback position and build a functional team around Justin Fields, who has the potential to be great. It also matters a ton what the players think as well, because, look, I know the players don't have authority in the draft room. Certain players do. Of course, we know Aaron Rodgers had tons of authority in the Packers draft room with what happened there. Not with Jordan Love. I don't think that that would have worked out the way it did. Whatever, that's besides the point. But I think also players weighing in as well kind of may sway Ryan Poles in one direction or another, because he wants to keep the respect of his franchise that he is trying to build. And about a week ago, on the St. Brown Brothers podcast, Bears wide receiver DJ Moore appeared, and he revealed what he thinks Chicago will do with the top selection.
What do you guys think you guys are going to do with the first pick?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think we trade back, to be honest.
Yeah. Man, Justin's good.
It worked out the first time.
Equanimous St. Brown, who is DJ Moore's teammate in Chicago, had agreed with him, and he is, of course, referring to the trade of the first overall pick last year, where the Bears acquired Moore. That was also alongside some picks that turned into right tackle Darnell Wright, cornerback Tyreek Stevenson, and the number 1 pick this year, and a 2025 second rounder. So he is right. It did work last time. Now, will this say anything to Ryan Poles? Probably not. Ryan Poles is going to weigh in all his options, talk to a ton of people, and ultimately make this decision. He's got until April to make the decision. So we're going to have to see what goes on there. He's got a couple months left, but this is a massive question for Chicago, one that's going to make or break the future of this franchise for sure. What's interesting here, though, is that DJ Moore's opinion may carry a lot of weight within the organization. It seems so as such. He had an exit interview with head coach Matt Eberflus and GM Ryan Poles, and Moore took the time to give his feedback about the offense, which he previously alluded to in his post-game presser with the media. He called out Luke Getsky's play calling. Guess what? Getsky was fired a week ago. That's not to say that DJ Moore was the reason that Luke Getsky was fired, but Eberflus and Poles very much value player input, especially from one of their best leaders in DJ Moore, and that could be used in a big picture evaluation for sure. Ryan Poles did admit that he was, quote, open-minded to trading the top selection for a second consecutive season. Look, it is all about what is going to be the best for the future of this team, and we cannot look at either option and say this is going to work or this is going to work, because we just truly don't know. And time tells the story. And when you take gambles, it's either going to make or break you. And that is the job that Ryan Poles signed up for as general manager of this team. He's been placed in a tough position, not a position I would ever want to be in, because Caleb Williams could become the next star. We have no idea. He certainly has the foundation to do so, but it all depends. The NFL is very different from college football, and it can break a lot of guys who we thought would come out there and be stars. It truly can. and Caleb Williams can come in to whatever team drafts him and be the best in the league, or he could be one that turns into a no-name in 3 years from now. And you can either say the Bears dodged a bullet with that one, or the Bears took the bullet. And the time will tell the story. And I hope we can hear more information from Ryan Poles in the coming months on what to do here. This is a question I think that's going to sit and marinate for quite some time. He has time to weigh all the options to make the decision. Again, the draft is not for a few months. So it's like, this is the moment now, especially as you see how the rest of the postseason plays out. What happens next? And the Bears have time to answer that question, but ultimately that question is very pressing. You know another guy in this league that's got a ton of decisions to make in the future? That's Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. And the scene at the Dallas Cowboys locker room cleanout day on Monday was similar to Sunday's postgame at AT&T Stadium. It was quiet, it was solemn, and it was depressing. And most of the players that were present were walking quickly in and out, speed walking away from the disappointment that comes with the second-seeded Cowboys losing to the seventh-seeded Packers 48-32. Again, that score does not do it justice at all to the slaughtering that was put on the Cowboys, snapping a 16-game home winning streak and ending their 2023 season. Jordan Lewis, Dallas Cowboys cornerback, said, quote, "It hasn't been 24 hours yet, and I'm still in shock." Team owner and GM Jerry Jones addressed the squad, airing out his distress regarding the early postseason exit. He has not been happy, and he has not tried to hide it whatsoever at all. And Jerry Jones sends a clear message to his players. He said, quote, "We got to win. This is the Dallas Cowboys." And so now you've got to make a ton of decisions if you're Jerry Jones on what your future with your team looks like, because you guys also kind of imploded when it mattered most. What do you do with Mike McCarthy, who got out-coached by his former team in the Green Bay Packers? Some may say the Packers fired Mike McCarthy twice, depending on what Jerry Jones decides to do with his head coach, McCarthy. And it's a big question, and it's one that needs answering soon as well. Jerry Jones, does he have the guts to make something happen? Or is he kind of just going to sit here and send his motivational messages with annoyance and anger and hope something happens? Well, according to Cowboys Country, Mike McCarthy's having a sit-down this week with Jerry Jones, and this is essentially going to be a job interview. What can Mike McCarthy do or say in that meeting to avoid getting fired? He's got 1 year remaining on his deal. The manner of defeat that he just faced against the Packers should cause the hierarchy in the Dallas organization to question everything from the top to the bottom about that organization, including Jerry Jones. He needs to be arguably assessed as part of the problem. 3 straight 12-5 seasons under Mike McCarthy. That's huge for a coaching resume. That is something that a lot of other teams will look at. 12-5, 3 straight years, that's pretty decent. It's hard to win 12 games in the National Football League, and doing it for 3 years consistently, that's a big feat. But that literally counts for nothing, because every single year they have been dumped out of the playoffs. They cannot get it done. We talked about the Philly frauds yesterday. The Cowboys are just as big as frauds as the Eagles are. And Dak Prescott, who's almost certainly going nowhere, going to stay in Dallas, starts to wilt under the bright lights. The offense starts to wilt under the bright lights when the moment matters most. And the defense as well, getting run over in brutal fashion by a kid making his first ever playoff start. So, yeah, sure, 12-5 looks good in all 3 straight seasons. It doesn't mean anything for this team. So Mike McCarthy may need to use some magic vocabulary to keep his job. I honestly don't think he's going to get fired. Look, he very well might be. It is a massive possibility, and I'm not going to be surprised in the slightest if he does. It's 3 seasons. He's proved nothing. Yeah, 12-5, that's great. 3 seasons, proved nothing. And there are a lot of other head coaches out there who could absolutely make this team a giant and a monster to face. Bill Belichick on the board. Could you imagine Belichick in Dallas? People were talking about that midway through the game. Mike Vrabel. Jim Harbaugh still out there interviewing with teams. He interviewed with the Falcons this week as well. So now he's got 2 teams under his belt. So he's moving through the NFL interviewing as well. What does it mean for the future of the coaching staff for the Cowboys? I could tell you any of the coaches that I just named are light years better than Mike McCarthy. Despite what the resume says, the winning seasons, the success that the Cowboys have had, what does it account for? It accounts for 0. It accounts for nothing, and it accounts for losing and choking in the playoffs when the time matters most. And you have proven nothing if you are Mike McCarthy. You've proven you can win games, but who cares? You could go undefeated. If you cannot win the whole thing, no one really cares very much, and you kind of just become a nobody. There are a ton of coaches out there that are light years better than what Mike McCarthy is. And I'm not trying to be a disrespectful person to Mike McCarthy. Not at all. That's not my goal. It's just stating the facts. Just stating the facts. If you were a Cowboys fan, I think you'd much rather have Bill Belichick than Mike McCarthy. I think you'd much rather have Mike Vrabel than Big Mike. I think you'd much rather have Jim Harbaugh than Big Mike. The list can go on. And it's time for a change if you're Dallas, because you're headed for another 4th straight winning season and choking in the playoffs if you don't have the guts to change anything as Jerry Jones. Make the change. Maybe we'll see the change in the next few days. I know Cowboys fans are hoping for it. They're calling for it. This disaster needs to stop, and the root of the disaster right now is Mike McCarthy. Well, that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for joining me on the Gabby Gordon Show. My name is Gabby Gordon. Pleased to have you with me on this beautiful Wednesday, January 17th, 2024, inching just so close to the NFL divisional round. We got 2 more shows left before these teams battle it out to make it into the AFC Championship and the NFC Championship, and we will get more into those matchups as the week comes to a close. I will see you tomorrow, same time, same place, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, every day is a great day to talk some sports. I'll catch you next time.